Um, let's do Ben Shapiro, and then I'll do Cuba.
Instituting significant layoffs. There was a time when Ben Shapiro could reasonably call himself the king of all conservative media. That's all over now.
Girl, fuck you. I'm not even kidding. I'm a little worried that because the UK banned me, I'm worried that the Commonwealth is going to do the same. And I plan on going to Australia in the upcoming year. A girl shower is hours long where we wash our hair, shave our whole entire bodies, exfoliate and wash our face and every crevice. Gosh, Hasan, have you ever talked to a woman? Oh, that's the girl shower. It's the opposite. It's not short. It's long.
I can't help but notice that the online world has become increasingly intertwined with mainstream politics lately.
You will be, in the not-too-distant future, running for political office. And you have my complete and total endorsement.
Influencers who once had nothing to do with such polarizing issues have since flung themselves headfirst into the most contentious political matters of the day. Whether driven by clout or by ideological purposes, the fact is, more and more influencers are beginning to play a larger role in the events that shape our history.
I want to thank the Nelk Boys, Aiden Ross, Theo Vaughn.
If you had told me 5 years ago that Kyle and Steiny of the Nelk Boys would have had a hand in whitewashing a genocide by granting a war criminal a softball interview on their Happy Dad sponsored podcast, I probably would have had some kind of severe medical episode. I mean, even now, it's hard to comprehend that being a real thing that happened.
Burger King. I like Burger King more.
What's your go-to at McDonald's?
No, I'll tell you Burger King. We did the, the double,
Whopper?
The double.
I haven't ripped Burger King in a long time.
Burger King kind of sucks.
Yeah.
No,
the,
you're wrong.
the BK Lounge can hit.
I disagree completely.
You like Burger King over McDonald's?
That's your worst take, I think.
Absolutely.
That's a crazy take.
Damn, such a hard-hitting journalism from the same
That's your
guys who
worst
brought
take.
you Nelk picking up hot girls in Miami and taking a virgin to the club. Because as refreshing as it might sound to have more people engage directly with the governments and policies that shape our existence, I can't help but think we're sort of being led down the road to hell by some of the least qualified grifters to walk the planet.
You openly admitted you never do research or read articles outside of Twitter. How can you shamelessly tell others to read more? I don't need to understand whatever article you want me to read.
This is one of the most goated Asmongold quotes where he's like, I don't need to read, bro. I know everything.
I don't need to read your little special book or your Wikipedia article or anything else besides that. None of that stuff matters.
Yeah, somehow one of the largest political commentators on Twitch, by the way. That's not discouraging or terrifying at all, is it?
Wash hands? Why don't you shut the fuck up? I washed my hands 3 weeks ago. Yeah, I'm fine. What are you talking about wash my hands for?
The idea that an official Twitter account of the US military would be using words like low cortisol and lethality maxing just weeks before launching a regional war in the Middle East is a bone-chilling reality, but it's the one we're living in. Awesome. The political landscape is shifting underneath us as we speak, which can come with serious consequences, especially as online punditry moves further into the extreme.
Women are made to be literally. That is what it is. Women are either mothers, whores, or nuns. No other options.
Last time I was in Korea, I was tired of them pretending they were not Chinese. You're all slanty-eyed. You're all Chinese. Japan, Korea.
You give me the pass.
I give you the pass. He says that shit all the time.
We've talked a lot on this channel about these guys. The loose ensemble of kick streamers and other online provocateurs ushering in a new era of reactionary politics, united not by a single outward ideology, but by a shared desire to build and maintain a personal brand. In their quest to create viral moments that keep themselves at the top of everyone's feeds, they've increasingly resorted to saying and doing more unhinged things. These guys are mostly funded by their audiences, meaning they're far less dependent on advertisers than traditional mainstream personalities, and have little to no
Brian Kilme just called you a champagne socialist on Fox 250. That's amazing. Rather a champagne socialist than champagne fascist like Brian is. Dan told me he now wants a guest list Northern Lion for one of their shows coming up in the winter. We're gonna fly out and fangirl and hype mog him. Northern Lion? Brian killed me. No, I didn't. I don't even know if I'm allowed back into Canada. So, dog, it sounded like you said that with their pinky out. Northern Lion mogs you every day. I mean, I can hype mog him though, like Dan Beckner did. Why are they talking about you on the special occasion? Is it to distract from the event being postponed? Yeah, it's pretty crazy that Brian Kilme's talking about me on the fucking America's 250th birthday on the patriotic channel. Damn, these guys have a lot of fucking angst, I guess. All right, let's get back to Benny Hanna.
To temper their rhetoric.
I'm Candace Owens' biological mom, and she is my biological son. And we're gonna get married.
Moreover, the billionaires who keep the lights on at Kick and Rumble are hardly interested in reining in the wild rhetoric so long as it continues to generate traffic. After all, much of their appeal stems from a perceived willingness to speak their minds, a supposedly moral commitment to tell it like it is, which of course only opens the door for more controversial moments, more clicks, more attention, and more money. Rinse and repeat. This less organized, less restrained, and in some cases, less explicitly political band of influencers with their fingers on the pulse of online culture and a younger, more energetic fan base at their disposal has set fire to the old guard of mainstream conservatism. And perhaps no organization better embodies that old guard than the Daily Wire and its most recognizable figure, Ben Shapiro. Since about 2016, Ben Shapiro has been a dominant force in the conservative ecosystem, traveling around the country, owning every woke, blue-haired college liberal that dare challenge his intellect, or bintellect. Does that work? I don't know. In 2017, the New York Times bestowed upon Ben Shapiro the title of Provocative Gladiator, a conservative wonder kid with grinding mechanical intelligence, as put by The Week in 2018. God, what were people on, man? Ben quickly rose to prominence as a right-wing firebrand during Trump 1.0, before gliding off the right-wing outrage machine most potent during the Biden administration, expanding his reach and making money hand over fist, even as recently as 2023, when the Daily Wire finished out that year with a profit of more than $200 million in top-line revenue. For all intents and purposes, Ben Shapiro's media...
You will never convince me that this wasn't base boosted by billionaires, by the way. I will never believe that. Okay, I think all conservative media properties are straight up getting money funneled on the revenue side that looks as though it's just like individual subscriptions and donations and whatnot, but it's actually coming straight up from billionaire donations.
Empire was poised for unprecedented growth.
Remember when PewDiePie had him on Meme Review? Yes, I do remember. God, it was so ass. God, the internet was so ass. And then there was like a brief moment of solace, but it was still ass because the wokes were too woke. And then, which I much prefer to the current situation. And now it's so much worse.
But today, those prospects look a little different. One glance at Ben Shapiro's 7 million subscriber
Gonna girl shower to this stream right now? Hell yeah.
YouTube channel will tell you that Ben has seen some better days, some much better days. The Washington Post just reported in May that Ben's views have plunged nearly 70% since the end of 2024, triggering a wave of mass layoffs amidst the inner turmoil. A Daily Wire spokesperson, Brad Bishop, told the Post they had to cut 13% of their employees since the beginning of this year alone, which comes after a previous round of layoffs the company was forced to enact last year, shortly after their co-founder, Jeremy Boring, stepped down as CEO. Now they've even lost the guy who replaced him, meaning the future of the company is now less certain than ever. This also comes as Ben's former friends and allies are running circles around him. He now finds himself outpaced by the likes of Tucker Carlson, Megyn Kelly, and even his former acolyte Candace Owens, who continues to siphon views from her one-time employer, making for a particularly personal thorn in the Daily Wire's side.
Do I have your consent to girl shower to your gym pics, King? Okay, now it feels like you're not girl showering. Now it feels like you're saying something else, which is definitely confusing me about girl shower.
Online conservative ecosystem is changing rapidly, and if Ben can't turn things around soon, he may just become a has-been. You get it? Because Ben, you get it? I mean, some of these videos have less than 20k views. The man is having to play Fortnite and react to TikToks, for God's sake. He is paying to run full broadcasts of his show as pre-roll advertisements on other videos, hoping that the viewer just falls asleep and watches the whole thing on accident, I guess? Not sure that's a winning business strategy long term, but you do you, Ben. I've contemplated a video on Ben Shapiro for years at this point. It's not like he hasn't given me a potentially endless trove of content to latch onto and attack, but as Cody Johnston said a few months ago in his video, we're at a point now where this might be the last time Ben Shapiro is even relevant enough to talk about. His predicament is a very real one, and I think it's worth examining how he went from such a rising star to a complete dud in a little under a decade. I think it speaks to the wider conservative movement that in the world of Republican politics, so-called principles aren't gonna get you as far as simply reading the room. Looking through this lens, Ben Shapiro's demise seems all but inevitable, and I hope this video can serve as a cathartic look back on one of the most putrid careers of one of the most repulsive men on the internet. Join me for the unprecedented rise and satisfying fall of Ben Shapiro. But first, I want to talk to you about today's sponsor, NoCD. NoCD is one of my absolute favorite companies to work with because it gives me a chance to talk about something that for too many years I felt I couldn't talk about at all, honestly. And that's been my experience with OCD. I've had it for about as long as I can remember. Even back when I didn't know what it was, I had already become painfully aware of the symptoms and had grown accustomed to feeling trapped by my compulsive behavior.
Ethical reacts. He's talking about his OCD.
It can be hard to describe OCD to someone who's never had to deal with it, but I remember being in 6th grade feeling like I had to obsessively wash my hands over and over again until my anxious feelings went away. I would force myself to think of quote-unquote good thoughts whenever I took a test, or else I had convinced myself that I would fail. I would have to touch every light switch of every room I entered, or else I felt like I would lose someone I cared about. Obviously, there was never any real connection between my anxiety and these rituals. Doing them wasn't going to change the outcome of something, and I knew that, but there was still this part of me that said I had to carry them out in order to feel okay. And sure, giving into them would help for a little bit, until there was another one I had to do, then another one, then another one. It was just a constant in my life for way too long. All these extremely rigid rituals began to consume me. It felt like I was being truly controlled and trapped by my compulsions until I found NoCD. NoCD is the world's leading treatment provider for OCD. All of their licensed therapists to be the main experts in OCD, so they know
Wait, they do ERP?
exactly what to look for and how to help. The lessons and tools my NoCD therapist taught me always ring loud in my ear every time I'm about to give in to a compulsion. They made me feel heard, and I can't tell you how much of a relief it was to actually speak with a trained professional whose job it is to listen to my experiences. It will always benefit you to reach out and get help, and I can tell you personally that NoCD is here for you. Their therapy is 100% virtual and covered by insurance for over 138 million Americans. It also includes support between sessions, so you never have to face OCD alone. To learn more about starting OCD therapy with NoCD, go to nocd.com and book a free call with their team today. That's nocd.com. Huge thanks to NoCD for sponsoring, and now back to Ben. Benjamin Aaron Shapiro was brought into the world at the height of the Reagan era on January 15th, 1984. Growing up with 3 sisters and raised by deep red Reagan Republicans in the predominantly liberal city of Burbank, California, Ben's parents both enjoyed careers.
Literally violinist. Father's a violinist. Ben's a violinist. He is just like, he is a liberal in every way, shape, and form. Except he just chose to be a conservative.
In the field of entertainment, his mother being a top executive at a television company, with his father David working as a composer, meaning that even from a young age, Ben had a healthy exposure to the arts. He was described as a child prodigy by Spectator in 2018, skilled in both violin and piano, which you can judge for yourself by watching his appearance at the Israeli Bonds Banquet in 1996.
Benjamin Shapiro is 12 years old. He will play for us the theme from Schindler's List. Ladies and gentlemen, Benjamin Shapiro.
It's almost kind of sweet to see a young Ben Shapiro so passionate about something that doesn't completely suck and make people's lives worse. You know, if you ignore the glaring fact that this performance was done to benefit a fascist ethno-state, of course. But if we know anything about Ben Shapiro, it's that his love of artistic expression has never once faded, as he's continued to sharpen and refine his musical chops over the years. Kinda makes me wish he had just steered clear of politics altogether and gone the route of a musician. A classical musician, okay? Not whatever the fuck this is.
Let's look at the stats.
But if a streak of creativity ran through Ben, so did a sense of unwavering patriotism. So much so that he had dressed up as John Adams every year for Halloween since the age of 5.
Oh my god. Okay, never mind. I take it back. He was fucking unbearable from the start, dude. And John Adams is dope. I'm just saying that, like, doing that as a 5-year-old, you are a turbo dork, okay? It was already predestined that he was always going to be a fucking dweeb.
Political discussions around the dinner table were far from uncommon in the Shapiro household, as David made sure that Ben, along with his sisters, were sufficiently engaged with the pressing matters of the day. But that doesn't mean Ben Shapiro always wanted to pursue a career in politics. Anyone who's seen his questionable takes on the Barbie movie or One Battle After Another knows that aside from music, Ben has long displayed a passion for film and television.
I like his mug. Did you see his?
It also kind of doesn't make sense. John Adams being your founder, that you're like your preferable founder, does not make sense with his current modern political framework. Interesting. Because he, like, John Adams objectively one of the most woke. So, like, how did that happen? You know what I mean? Ben hasn't been very good at actually understanding people from history. Yeah, I guess true.
Mug? His mug is funny. Did you see the mug he's carrying there? It says, "Oh, for fuck's sake." That is what the mug says.
Which makes sense. Not only do his parents come from Hollywood, but Ben's cousin is actress Mara Wilson, who, as a child,
literally disowned him, by the way, so don't hold that against her. Actively dunks on Ben.
Starred in such films as Matilda, Mrs. Doubtfire, Miracle on 34th Street, and perhaps the film that most resonated with me as a child, Thomas and the Magic Railroad. It's peak, honestly. Of course, it's worth noting that Ben and Mara aren't exactly on speaking terms these days, what with her political convictions being the polar opposite of his. But if you look closely at Ben Shapiro's career, you may just find a thinly veiled desire to follow in the footsteps of so many of his family members. Take, for example, this particularly cringeworthy interview he gave in 2011.
Oh my God. J Aubrey's going back to the, this is one of my favorite interviews where he just like straight up gets dunked on by this lady who's like, well, don't you think your writing is shit and that's why you couldn't make it in Hollywood? Maybe it's not. Maybe it has nothing to do with your conservative views.
While promoting his 4th book, Primetime Propaganda, the true Hollywood story of how the left took over your TV. Wow, very subtle title there, Ben. I wonder what the book could be about. Connie Martinson brings up a time in Ben's life where he had been asked to write a TV series that Ben describes as a mix of comedy and...
Ben didn't show up. This is his entire extended family. I'm good friends with his niece and no embarrassing facts about him. Ben didn't show up to his grandma's 100th birthday or her funeral, which I assume shortly followed the 100th birthday. Like the way you presented that. That's crazy, though.
And drama.
Was that a comedy? Was it sitcom?
Chat, you made it seem like chatter. You made it seem like it was the same party.
Was it drama?
It was more of a dramedy. It was based on Harvard Law School. It was a dramedy. I've written a couple comedies, kind of hour-long dramedies for, spec script.
And have they been bought?
No, because no. And there are a couple reasons for that.
Okay. So what do you think was the reason, Ben?
One is that it's hard to sell anything in this town.
Yeah, thank you.
Period. Regardless of political viewpoint. And the other is that, and especially a breakout series right from the get-go, right? I mean, it's hard to sell a spec script. You start as a baby writer. I mean, you know the process.
Yeah.
And the one thing, above all, that Hollywood does right now that is utterly despicable is that they keep people who are not of their political ilk out of the business. Period. End of story.
Ben may not have expected this to be a confrontational interview, but Connie certainly doesn't back down in asserting what we're probably all thinking, that Ben Shapiro and other...
I know what I'm thinking. Hollywood is anti-Semitic. And I'm not afraid to say it.
Conservatives aren't kept out of the writer's room for being conservative, they're kept out for being unfunny. She even cites her husband, a conservative who found success in Hollywood, as a prime example of this.
I find that a little hard to believe because...
Look at the tape.
Well, I'd like to see the tape. Only because my husband, who's a conservative, was a very famous director at a certain point. And I just try to think... being Democrat or Republican or whatever, very rarely came into the conversation.
Well, I mean...
Although I will say we were cleared by the FBI.
They then take a bit of a detour into a wider debate about conservatives advocating against abortion, but then failing to provide child-friendly social services once they've left the womb, a conversation that we are remarkably still having today.
I do know, having talked with some of the ultra-conservative, that they are very concerned, as you said, about anti-abortion, but they don't care about schooling. Where the government would come in, there is definitely no action.
They seem to be kind of separate issues to me. I mean, you can be for the not killing of fetuses or babies, and also be for...
Oh, back then when he didn't have... Back then he didn't have the messaging discipline. He accidentally said fetuses and then corrected himself, said, I mean babies. Woke! Classic. This is just like when there's like a compilation out there of Ben Shapiro like accidentally correctly misgendering trans women over and over again, only to stop himself and then misgender them deliberately.
Less government intervention in education. We're spending a ton of money on education. Our education has been consistently worse every year for the last 50. So the correlation between government spending and better levels of education is completely misplaced.
Well, I was thinking in terms of the free food lunch for kids who don't have food at home. Anyhow, let's get back to television.
They spar some more over the politics of shows like All in the Family and MASH. Ben suggests that Hollywood was much more moderate in the 50s and 60s, before, in a sinister turn of events, becoming liberal sometime in the 1970s, as if it were some carefully coordinated conspiracy or something, and not just a reflection of where the country was politically at that time. But I think it's fascinating that Ben essentially admits here that he had tried to get a television show off the ground at one point, only to be turned away because, in his words, his politics were too unsavory for Hollywood. Now, what I wouldn't give to actually read any of what he wrote for that TV show that never made it to production, but I think there's ample evidence.
Yeah, Ben Shapiro being an Orthodox Jew who's anti-abortion also makes no sense. He is so Christ-cucked, it's not even funny. Like, buddy, why are you anti-abortion? Why are you so Christ-cucked? This makes no sense. It's not even a part of your religion.
evidence that conservatives have been able to find work in Hollywood, assuming they're actually good at what they do. I mean, just that year alone, Norm Macdonald was able to launch a new show on Comedy Central. And it's not like Norm had ever been shy about his political leanings. He was just talented regardless, and therefore was able to have a long and fruitful career in entertainment. Even to this day, he is highly regarded by industry leaders across the board, despite being a longtime conservative. I'm just highly skeptical of Ben Shapiro's theory here that conservatives were being turned away in mass on account of their political convictions alone, and that his attempts to break into the industry failed in any way because of his politics. Seems to me like more of a convenient excuse for not being more talented. Yet I refuse to believe otherwise until Ben lets us see those amazing dramedy scripts he wrote. Release the Shapiro cut, Ben. The world needs it. But not everybody disagreed with the central argument of Ben's book. Turns out there were a few key men living around Los Angeles at the time who felt similarly dejected by liberal Hollywood elites. One was a fringe producer by the name of Jeremy Boring, perhaps best known, in the words of Vanity Fair, for helping to produce Etienne, a buddy movie about a dying dwarf hamster. Yeah, I think I speak for everyone when I say we've all seen that one. Would it surprise you to learn that it's now found a home on Tubi? Wait, hang on, the rating is what exactly? After moving out west from a small town in Texas, Boring became friends with star of the TV show Chuck, the titular character in the DC franchise Shazam, and esteemed Fortnite Friday guest Zachary Levi, who he would accompany to the Chuck set during the late 2000s. Boring told Vanity Fair of one on-set exchange that always stuck with him. One day, I'm walking through the stairwell, and a very well-known actress, who was one of the stars of that show, stopped me and said, "Hey, is that your Bush Cheney bumper sticker on that pickup in the parking lot?" I said, "Yeah, yes ma'am." She said, "Kid, you've got balls of steel." Honest truth.
That's a real story that happened. That's a real, dude. God, conservatives and perceived victimhood. Name a better combo, dude. Oh my God. Oh my God. Y'all, we are so persecuted in Hollywood, bro. Oh.
Even until that moment, it was completely lost on me. And just like that, Boring became keenly aware.
Yeah, a well-known actress. And then she fucked me in the car. And then we high-fived after. It's a real story.
Of a silent underbelly of the Hollywood machine. Conservatives did exist in LA, they just weren't as vocal as the liberals may have been. He soon joined a networking group called Friends of Abe, described by the New York Times as a collection of perhaps 1,500 right-leaning players in the entertainment industry, which is where he got to know Andrew Breitbart, the bomb-throwing reactionary founder of Breitbart News. Breitbart famously used to say that politics is downstream from culture. It was sort of his guiding principle when honing attacks on the left. Breitbart felt that if conservatives could penetrate the world of film,
literally just the opposite of reverse Gramsci.
TV, and music, they could then mold political consciousness in their favor. Perhaps it's no surprise then that Breitbart hired a 28-year-old Ben Shapiro to become the outlet's editor-at-large in 2012, just weeks ahead of Andrew Breitbart's sudden death on March 1st of that year. Replaced by Steve Bannon, the continuation of Andrew Breitbart's legacy was already well underway, considering it was him who introduced Jeremy Boring to Ben Shapiro a few years earlier. The two men would go on to start a news site of their own called Truth Revolt in October of 2013, before founding another website in 2015. They called it The Daily Wire. Within just 14 months of bursting onto the scene, Ben Shapiro and Jeremy Boring, who I
never forget when Ben Shapiro was working at Breitbart, Breitbart had a black crime tab, as in whenever a black person did a crime, it would get featured on the Breitbart Black Crime tab. Not crime, black crime specifically. Ben Shapiro later left Breitbart after Breitbart hired, Steve Bannon hired Milo Yiannopoulos to lean into the Gamergate stuff to make gamers even more reactionary, which inevitably led to the likes of Asmongold. Ben Shapiro left in that period because Milo Yiannopoulos was outed as being an anti-Semite, a neo-Nazi, and Ben Shapiro thought, well, that's a bridge too far, which, ironically enough, is a fun little story about his career as well. Ben Shapiro has always been Mr. Anti-woke, anti-DEI, except for people who are pro-Israel. And I don't even mean Jews, even though he does care about anti-Semitism, clearly, regardless of the fact that he doesn't care about any other form of bigotry and is a champion of all different sorts of bigotry. He clearly found Breitbart's anti-Semitism to be a bridge too far at the time.
Should mention like to call himself the God King of the website, in case you felt like cringing out of your skin today.
Do you remember when there were 2 genders and only 1.5 of them had to shave their mustaches?
We're able to boast that the Daily Wire had become cash flow positive nearly a full year ahead of schedule. They like to brag that they didn't need any outside financial backers to do it, but that's probably...
I guess after Ben left and they brought the black crime tab back,
because their venture had always been propped up by billionaire fracking tycoon Ferris Wilks, a noted Christian nationalist who fueled the Daily Wire's launch to the tune of $4.7 million as a part of him and his brother Dan's broader mission to, as reported by Ava Kaufman, not just slash regulations and taxes for the wealthy, but to steer the government toward Christian rule, seeking to eliminate the distinction between church and state. While calling itself a truly self-funding business on its website, the Daily Wire addressed its oil baron ties by desperately arguing that, as of July 2020, neither Shapiro nor Boring have ever met with Dan Wilks or received any money from Wilks Brothers LLC, which doesn't stop the site's detractors from braying about how the company is bought and paid for by the evil fracking Wilks Brothers. Wilks Brothers sounding, we guess, like Koch brothers, and thus more nefarious to leftist media outlets. Ooh, well, at least you guys clearly aren't mad about it. Glad you don't let the criticism get to you. Clearly, if it's the longest paragraph of your entire about page. Also, how can you blame anybody for braying when you are quite literally bought and paid for by at least one Wilks brother? I mean, it's just the truth. The least you could do is own it. But what exactly did they do with that generous donation, you ask? Well, at the same time, they were pumping out article after article on their website. Some of their 2015 headlines included such gems as Congressional Democrat, 1 in 5 Muslims willing to start jihad for caliphate. Democrats love cursing. Here are the top 5 leftist potty mouths. And 2 reasons you shouldn't go back in time and kill baby Hitler by Ben Shapiro? Ben, you're Jewish! The Daily Wire also developed a presence on YouTube and Facebook during this time. In fact, if you go to their channel right now and sort by oldest, you'll find a 10-year-old video of Ben Shapiro chastising then GOP primary candidate Donald Trump as a liar.
So,
many people forget, but Charlie Kirk was also anti-Trump. He was first to jump on the Trump train, but he was also, of course, as is the case with Ben Shapiro and every other one of these operatives, vehemently anti-Trump. I believe they both liked Ted Cruz more than Trump. I mean, J.D. Vance was anti-Trump later in the game. I'm just saying, Candace Owens was anti-Trump. Candace Owens was pro-Obama, which is crazy. At least the other ones were like conservative still. They just didn't like Trump because they didn't. Yeah.
Trump a big winner? Or is he a spoiled brat who grew up in the lap of luxury, had his daddy sign his checks, and then bragged about how he is a huge winner? Trump's 3 biggest crowds are evangelicals, conservatives, and he's a winner voters. Trump is lying to all of them.
Which might be wild to see today, but back in 2015, when there were still seemingly plenty of viable contenders for the Republican nomination, Ben Shapiro and the Daily Wire were actually fairly critical of the man, who would later go on to win the presidency twice and reshape the Republican Party in his image. Already tell from titles like Democrat America, Thugs, Rapists, and Child Molesters, Hollywood Wants to Molest Your Kids, and Captain America is gay and a Nazi. Yeah, this is apparently the kind of content that $4.7 million will get you.
This guy, by the way, is considered a leading Trump ally, Alex Jones. I don't know why! I can't understand it! Look at this! Look what's underneath here! It's another shirt! Why? Why? Because I don't want to go to the cleaners that often, that's why. Come on. Okay.
It was clear from the beginning that the Daily Wire sought to provide content to dejected Republican voters who, sure, hated liberals and Muslims as much as the next reactionary freak, but were still skeptical of the GOP's frontrunner. Of course, that audience proved to be a shrinking one, as Donald Trump smashed caucus after caucus, picking up scores of delegates and solidifying himself as the man to face off against the dreaded Hillary Rodham Clinton that November.
I'm just chilling.
Grappling with a Trump presidency on election night, Shapiro and Boring may very well have positioned the Daily Wire to go belly up, if it weren't for a new niche they were early to tap into. It's not that they were simply pro-Trump, but they also definitely weren't anti-Trump either, as Ben Shapiro was about to learn the value of becoming anti-Trump in 2017.
Donald J. Trump is now President of the United States.
Darth Vader, no, from this lady.
Okay, well that was forced as no way was that a genuine laugh, Ben. Come on. I know it may feel like another lifetime ago, but Donald Trump's first term in office provided plenty of material for mainstream liberals intent on demonstrating their hashtag resistance to a president who they, quite correctly, identified early on as a fascist warmonger hell-bent on ushering in the American century of humiliation. I mean, I think we can say now they were pretty fucking vindicated. You had the women's marches immediately after the inauguration, a day without immigrants on February 17th, pink pussy hats were flying off the shelves, though obviously not all of America was on board, since they did go on to elect him again just 8 excruciating years later, and there were figures in the media ready to capitalize on those who looked at the resistance movement and said, huh? Ben Shapiro understood quite well that while some Americans had voted for Trump, plenty of others had voted against Hillary. They may not have particularly cared for Donald Trump the man, but they certainly hated what Hillary Clinton represented. And unfortunately, those early years also provided plenty of material for red-pilled servants of the billionaire class to traffic in their cancerous ideology through the means of smearing the left as a bunch of hysterical crybabies that were simply too immature or uneducated to understand such foundational concepts as facts and logic.
People were wearing what they were calling pussy hats, like pussy cats, but hats, okay? And these were supposed to protest Donald Trump because Donald Trump is such a sexist. If you want to drive Americans out of your camp, a quick way to do it is just keep saying things like pussy hats over and over and over, and then talking about female anatomy. A lot of these signs are super obscene. There are a lot of kids who showed up to this thing, and there are a lot of really obscene signs.
The name of the game was to hammer the left on their supposed weirdness to get as many non-political people in the door as possible. I mean, this video alone got close to 1 million views, and that was before the world had really learned who Ben Shapiro was. As liberals were pushing back against Trump, Ben was pushing back against them, laying a new foundation from which right-wing figureheads would go on to launch their attacks. A classic strategy in the world of politics is to paint the other side in the most unfavorable light imaginable. If you can show an example of one leftist being crazy, you can smear the entire left as crazy, thus drawing a distinction between them and you as the reasonable, level-headed adults in the room, especially in the eyes of normies. A cursory glance at Ben's overall channel will show you that his most popular videos don't even have Trump's name in the title. What really got him the views were his reactions to woke SJWs, his attempts to debunk woke ideology, and of course, the debates. The many debates of Ben Shapiro. I think there could easily be an entire video devoted to Ben Shapiro's disingenuous debate tactics, but that's not really what we're here to do today. Ben's debates haven't been relevant for a hot minute anyway.
Did you fall? Wait, what do you mean? Why did you scream? It was in the video, wasn't it? There was a scream in the video and you guys thought it was me? No, I was washing my hands after I fucking put my dishes away. Heard you take a tumble? You guys are so stupid.
But if you've watched any of it yourself, you'll quickly notice a pattern. The overwhelming majority of these smackdowns took place on college campuses, meaning this Harvard-educated, heavily politically engaged debate lord was facing off against well-intentioned college students who, unfortunately, were a little too underprepared to deal with such a weathered professional. Now, does that fact alone make Ben's positions correct? Obviously not, no. The point of these debates wasn't to be right. The point was to humiliate the opponent at all costs. You certainly don't really need to change your opponent's mind. You don't even have to be civil. This is YouTube. Whatever it takes to go viral. Short, clippable moments will always be more valuable than fully fleshed out ideas and arguments.
Okay, but you're still saying these kids should like not be accepted because they don't really fit in either place? They can't just like...
I'm saying that the Boy Scouts have a standard. You must be a biological boy to be a Boy Scout. You have to be a boy.
Fucking God! Let's go! Sorry. I got excited. When I see my goat thriving, you know what I mean? When I see my motherfucking goat thriving, it's hard. It's hard for me not to... It's hard not to get excited, you know?
To be a Boy Scout.
Where's that written though? Okay.
In the name Boy Scouts.
Ben knew his role, and that role was to refurbish the old, dusty, conservative talking points that had been thrown around.
Dude, that was fucking so sick, dude. You fucking own that libtard, dude. God, oh my God, one day I want to do an epic ownage compilation like my goat Ben. Oh God. Fucking destroyed with facts and logic. You want to know why Ben Shapiro's career fell off? Not just because of Israel. Israel was the fucking final straw that broke the camel's back. You want to know why his career fell off? Because straight up, everyone on his side was just like, wait a minute, why the fuck do we care about facts and logic? No, the fuck we don't. Actually, no. My feelings matter far more than facts. Facts are woke. Facts are gay. Facts are libtarded. That's what happened. Everyone straight up was like, why are we listening to this fucking nerd? I don't want to debate. I don't want to debate libtards. I want to call them pedophiles instead. The appetite for facts and epic ownage and wanting to feel smart about destroying your interlocutors in the marketplace of ideas fell by the wayside. And it makes sense. It was living on borrowed time anyway, because Ben Shapiro never actually demonstrated facts. Unfortunately, I know this is a cliche, and I will repeat it, but truth does have a little bit of a bias on the liberal side, okay? For all of liberals' faults and failures, for the many different things I yell at them about, they are, by and large, on the right side when it comes to, I don't know, empirical evidence. Or at least they will generate the empirical evidence necessary. Republicans don't care. Republicans don't care about that shit. They think facts are woke and gay. That's what they did during COVID. During COVID, they were just like, oh, dude, all matter of science is bad and wrong. And dare I say immoral, potentially satanic. I don't care about it because it hurts my brain to think.
Around for decades, formerly weaponized by mainstream figures who were a little too ideological and old for the type of audience that Ben was going for. Ben Shapiro was Rush Limbaugh and Glenn Beck for a generation that had never heard those names before. He could connect with the youth in ways that were never possible for Fox News blowhards like Sean Hannity, who were preaching primarily to the old folks home. Yet Ben was still railing against the exact same issues that conservatives of the past had always been obsessed with. Feminism, transgenderism, Islam. He once famously tweeted that Israelis like to build, Arabs like to bomb crap and live in open sewage. Hashtag settlements rock. He's advocated for the privatization of Social Security, the complete criminalization of abortion and gay marriage, and of course, fewer taxes on billionaires. Broadcasting himself across all the major social media platforms, Ben Shapiro quickly embraced the role of the new, fast-talking millennial millennial who could demonstrate to the Republican old guard that actually young people could be quite receptive to this stuff if it were packaged the right way. At least that's what the old guard seemed to take away from his rapid success, and the success was undeniable. The New York Times reported that by November 2017, Ben's podcast was being downloaded 10 million times each month, with a staggering 70% of his audience being under the age of 40. One compilation of his debates, uploaded in September 2017, is currently sitting at over 17 million views. By January 2018, Slate found
God, he really fucking banged back in the day. What the hell were people on, man? What the fuck? Yeah, generational L for Faillennials is right, dude. It is kind of crazy that motherfuckers were like, I can't get enough of this fucking loser. Basically making a nerdier and I guess, somewhat more convincing case for the exact same shit that Glenn Beck, Rush Limbaugh, Sean Hannity, Jesse Waters, Tucker Carlson, and all these other motherfuckers were saying. I was one of those young boys watching this shit. I know. Many of you were. Many of you have come up to me in public, unashamed, which, you know, it's fine. We all went through different phases, like I get it. But many of you have told me this. You were literally on this pipeline. It's kind of crazy. Dude, imagine if you didn't encounter my content, become a member of this community, maybe join DSA, maybe become like a labor union organizer or whatever, as many of you have done. You could right now be sitting at home, okay? Sitting at home watching a Asmongold compilation being like, oh my God, these fucking foids. Oh, Asmon, you're so based. That's where you would be at right now. You would be on that timing right now. That is what time it would be for you. Think about how fucking terrifying that is. No friends, stuck in this dark pit of despair and sadness. Constantly fucking thinking like, oh, dude, thank God USAID was cut. Thank God the USAID funding was cut. Now titties in video games any day now. Like that's the type of shit you'd be thinking and saying.
Found that Shapiro had more Facebook engagements in December than any other conservative site or personality except for Fox News and Breitbart. He was outpacing the Daily Caller by 2.5 times and received 6 times more engagement than Sean Hannity, 11.5 times.
I was an edgy centrist, bro. Then I watched your clip of you with the new Taliban who were slay queening and girl boss doing girl boss shit, and now I am now a jacked and leftist as fuck. Lamau, the rest is history. It is pretty crazy to think that like the Boo Boo Bennett video might have straight up saved the lives of hundreds of thousands of people. It's the one that a lot of people point to, but it is always funny to think like, what was the one clip that you saw of me that clicked? But I guess also at the same time, there's the opposite of it, because there's a entire industry dedicated to making sure that the first clip you see of me is horrible.
More than Laura Ingraham. By that time, his Facebook page alone was sitting at 3.5 million followers. Jeremy Boring told Vanity Fair at the end of 2018 that the Daily Wire was bringing in a total of 140 million page views a month, had 60 full-time employees on the payroll, and sure enough, they were able to bring on even more on-screen personalities in due time. By now, I have no doubt you know them, and I'm sure you love them. In 2017, the Daily Wire officially brought on Michael Knowles, a graduate of Yale and also a failed actor whose illustrious list of roles included a gay twink who has gay sex.
That's true. That's Michael. Yeah. What is your fucking, how did you find me, Mehmet Walshoğlu?
Sex with another gay man.
That just happened.
Dog, you didn't have to wear that. That's not a Speedo. That's a thong. I debated this man on COVID lockdowns.
The only reason I bring that up is because Michael Knowles, if you didn't know, is a raging homophobe who's declared that same-sex couples are unfit to have children, that their families are pretend, and has compared surrogacy to purchasing a luxury item, stating that even if they go to the baby store and purchase the eggs from one woman and rent the womb of another woman and create a child as though the child were a handbag to be purchased at Ferragamo homo or something, they're not fit to raise a child. He's argued that women understood the world a lot better before feminism, has decried anti-white racism, and has advocated for the eradication of transgenderism from public life entirely. So, you know, perfect candidate for the cool kids philosopher to take under his wing. 2017 was also the year that Matt Walsh joined the Daily Wire as a columnist. Before
I started watching when Trump got COVID and you were openly celebrating it while CNN was praying for his safety. I would never do that. Why would you say that? Why would you say such things?
being upgraded to podcast host the following year. Walsh is a man with a similar resume, though instead of acting, his past...
I learned about you from Kayagate. Wait, really? What the fuck? That's the craziest. That's like, yeah, this guy fucking abuses his dog. I gotta check this guy out. I love dog abuse. What the fuck? This is yo, my boyfriend said it was right-wing shit, lol. I was an Andrew Tate fan watching you debate him, became your fan. Oh, nice.
Consists of sitting on the side of the road and rambling to himself about the differences of consensual and non-consensual sex. No, I'm not kidding.
There are non-consensual sex.
Wait, so Kayagate actually caused me to get... There are hella people that are saying Kayagate. What? What was your thing? Last guy who did these owners compilations at college campuses died while arguing the racially motivated false statement about gun violence. I told a friend that America deserved 9/11 and he said, have you heard of Twitch? That's what you said. I broke from watching Brian Tyler Cohen, all the same scripts he used for his videos. Man's got hella catchphrases. Kayagate was only 4 months ago. Kayagate was October 7, 2025.
Which is bad. And then we have consensual sex, which we think is always good. That's what the culture says. That's what a lot of us have, most of us, it seems like that's the idea that we have. It's like, as long as they're consenting adults who choose to do this thing, then it must be okay. But the reality is that there's a lot of bad sex. There's a lot of immoral sex. There's a lot of disordered, gross, harmful sex that is nonetheless consensual. And in the Catholic Church, you have...
Wait, he's mad about... Wait, I remembered this car rant because I think this is where he advocates to fuck minors. Okay, I'm almost certain that this is the car rant where he talks about like fucking 16-year-olds. What I did not remember is him also railing against consensual sex that's immoral.
You have some cases where like cases involving Cardinal McCarrick. You hear about Cardinal McCarrick and the controversy surrounding him. Now, there are accusations that he molested children. So, you know, that's in that category. But then a lot of the accusations you hear about McCarrick and also with other, you know, some of these other things as well. These are, in some cases, he's having sex with seminarians. These are grown men who he allegedly lured into bed and then had sex with. But as a grown man, if you let another man lure you into bed, does that belong in the same category as the 12-year-old kids?
Would you believe me if I said this was also the same guy who defended teen pregnancy so long as the teen is married and that girls are technically, quote, most fertile at 17?
Teen pregnancy is a new problem.
Yes.
In the sense that it's only recently that we decided that it is a problem. Even biologically, and this is me just stating, I'm going to start by just stating facts. Girls between the ages of like 17 and 24 is when they're technically most fertile.
Yeah.
Okay? That's biological. That's a fact, all right? I'm just stating facts. That's all I'm doing. So what I'm saying is that the problem is not per se teenage pregnancy. It's unwed pregnancy. That's the problem in society.
Believe me, when I went to the University of Maryland, I was a little bit older than everybody. It was like you get there and you see these like innocent girls, and by the end of the year, it's just like the stories you've heard about them. It's like this internal need to breed, and it just comes out at the at the wrong time.
Internal need to breed. Awesome. Another great hire there, Ben. Love the fact that Matt Walsh has sold literal plush toys of himself as a baby, by the way. Not at all strange or off-putting in the slightest. Nothing but the best at the Daily Wire, whose rotating cast of characters not only included the girl named Brett Cooper, who is essentially the gender-swapped version of Ben Shapiro, and Candace Owens, who was officially brought on board in 2020 despite a bit of a controversial past of her own, one that includes Hitler apologia, as she stated in 2018 that if Hitler just wanted to make Germany great and have things run well, okay, fine. The problem is he had dreams outside of Germany, which I think only slightly undercut some of the things he was doing.
Yeah, Ben Shapiro heard that and was like, that's my gal. Ben Shapiro heard that and was like, is she pro-Israel? And Candace was like, of course I'm pro-Israel. And Ben was like, you're hired.
Inside of Germany? But apparently Ben Shapiro saw that and said, we need her. Ultimately, Ben Shapiro was building a behemoth. Towards the end of Trump 1.0, the Daily Wire had been transformed into an influencer-driven juggernaut, hell-bent on waging the culture war on as many fronts as possible. Shapiro, Owens, Walsh, and Knowles were each raking in millions of views on their own respective broadcasts, and because of the constant cross-promotion that was going on, you could almost describe the Daily Wire as its own unique form of content house. Sure, they weren't living in a mansion together like Team 10, or making their money from OnlyFans like the MILF.
What do you think gets Ben Shapiro braked up? Thinking about the Greater Israel Project. That's it. Nothing else. Definitely not his wife. We know that.
House, but they were virtually inseparable for a time.
Hasan, are you streaming on July 4th because you hate America? I love America.
Because there was one glaring issue with the way the company had been organized. If one of the on-screen talents got big enough and decided they no longer needed the Daily Wire for support, they could simply walk away at any time and take their audience with them. A harrowing prospect that Ben Shapiro and Jeremy Boring would have been wise to take into account. But that wasn't exactly what they were concerned with at the time. After all, they had much more pressing matters to attend to in the era of Biden. With Donald Trump officially out of the White House, Ben Shapiro and Jeremy Boring found themselves in a more advantageous position than ever. For 4 years, Ben was, more or less, having to put up a front to defend a president who he had always despised on a moral level. Now, the president was a Democrat, an old senile one that he could openly and viciously trash without having to worry about even the slightest pushback from his audience. In fact, it's what they expected him to do. And of course, Ben wasn't about to let them down.
Not a good look there, Joe. Not a great look at all. He's completely asleep. So, this guy is a fail. He is a giant fail.
And I've loved kids jumping on my lap.
What the
This guy is a giant fail. Oh my God. Give him $4 million right now. Give him $10 million.
That's a great meme. Did you know that every single like creates one additional leftist tier?
I just don't understand like what people, I mean, I guess like this is the content equivalent of doing like anti-woke razors. You know what I mean? Where it's just like a more dog shit version of something you could get that's readily available, but this time it's got, you know, you're also doing it political style. Like there's also a political movement that you're a part of. Like, who the fuck will be like, oh my God, I can't wait to watch this guy go epic fail on another Joe Biden compilation?
That is just science. What's going on with this guy?
Trust me, the hogs were eating good. It's not like Joe Biden didn't give him any material to work with.
When it came spring, it came the fall, this is the God's truth. And you get in the car, and there's a little frost on the window, turn on the windshield wiper, there'd be an oil slick. Not a joke. I have asthma, and 80% of the people who, in fact, we grew up with have asthma. That's what you call a fence line community.